I think they're some of the hardest skills to actually teach it and utilize it and be successful with. We like to use the term core competencies, human-centered skills. So I think that that's kind of what the piece, because, teaching the technical element, even in a youth sport, it's difficult. You need experts to do it, but it is actually easier to teach a kid how to hit a baseball or hit a soccer ball than actually teach them about empathy and leadership skills and how to do that. But I think it's also critical, and I get into the leadership space that we talk about, to also recognize that it's important as well that they become intentional and they're genuine and authentic when you're teaching those skills.
So welcome to the Better People Podcast. I'm Margaret Uhrich, and in today's episode, we're talking to Martin Brown, President and CEO of Steel Sports. Welcome, Martin.
Hello, Margaret. How are you? Thanks for having me. It's a pleasure to be here.
Well, we are thrilled to have you here with us today. So Martin, before we jump into our really exciting conversation, can I ask you just to share with our listeners a little bit about who Martin Brown is?
Sure. Welcome to the listeners. It's a pleasure to be here. I am currently, as you said, the president and CEO of Steel Sports. I am originally from England, although I'm based here in New Jersey. This is not a New Jersey accent. So I'm originally just south of Liverpool, came to the US about 25 years ago, and have been really working in youth sports and coach education for most of that time. The majority of that time, I have my own company. It was acquired by Steel Sports in 2018, which is how I got to Steel Sports. And in 2020, I was promoted to the president and CEO role at Steel Sports. I've been there doing that ever since. I have 4 kids, so they keep me very busy. 3 younger ones, 1 older one, and all starting or well on their journey of playing sports. So it's always fun to get out and see them. So.
Yeah, I'm sure it is. So I keep hearing the word sports. So tell us, what does Steel Sports do?
Yeah, so at Steel Sports, we consider ourselves primarily a social impact organization, but really we're a coach education company. And what we do is, through our coaching system, we provide online and in-person and live modules to train coaches to work in youth sports. Really, our focus is using our coaching system both externally, but more internally for our own coaches to field their own teams. So we also run our own teams, our own programs, our own camps, clinics, and events. And we train our coaches to deliver our coaching system to improve our athletes both on and off the field. And then we measure that data to prove that the coaching system and our methodology work. So unlike other coaching education organizations that might be out there that kind of go externally, work with a group, provide content, provide seminars, etc., and then disappear maybe and come back a year later, we're actually taking what we're doing and actually working with kids regularly year over year to make sure that we are implementing elements of that coaching system to improve kids.
Gotcha. So what is the mission of Steel Sports?
So our mission is to inspire youth to reach their potential on and off the field through the Steel Sports coaching system by developing them as athletes and people. Essentially, why we do this is we want to empower kids to grow beyond the game. What's important to us is not only improving them athletically on the field, but improving their character, improving their leadership skills, improving their resilience, their determination, and helping coach our coaches through that to bring that out in kids and then measure that we're actually doing that on a consistent basis.
So you've talked about a system. Is this a system that Steel Sports created?
Yes. So Steel Sports was founded in 2011, and through many, many years, and it's really an ongoing living system because science changes, ideas change, new research is done. So it's something that we consistently are updating and making edits to, but it's something that we started to develop in 2011. So we're kind of 13 years into this system. We've used a whole lot of experts in the field of sports psychology, in the field of coaching, professional sports that have all contributed to this. We are delivering this I'm not an expert in sports psychology, but with Steel Sports, we have the resources to be able to go and find that expert and say, hey, we really want to develop a program for our athletes that helps them build character. How can we do that? This is the parameters of what we want. And we're able to incorporate that into our system and then produce modules to help train our coaches to go and do that.
So you mentioned professional sports, and I know you have a really interesting origination story for how Steel Sports came to be. So tell us that story.
So I mentioned the Steel Sports coaching system. Its actual full name is the Steel Sports Coaching System, the Lasorda Way. So as you know, there's really only one Lasorda that anybody really knows in sports, and that's obviously Tommy Lasorda. Our executive chairman of our parent company, we're a subsidiary of an organization called Steel Partners, moved out to California with his young son. It was just him and his son, and they were trying to, get together in a new community, meet new people, and his son wanted to play baseball. So we started playing Little League, and our chairman, as the type of person he is, was not a sports fan. He was not he didn't play sports growing up, so he didn't play youth sports. He didn't go out to the ballpark and watch games, but his son was playing. And he does what thousands of parents do across this country, which is like, okay, my kid's involved, I'll get involved. I'm not an expert, I'll do whatever. So he said, I'll be an assistant coach, just don't ask me to teach hitting, pitching, base running, but I can line the kids up, I can make sure they're hydrated and give them their snack, whatever it is. So he got involved, as many people do around the country, with their kid and their team. And he started to see the benefits that sports had, both negatively and positively, on each of the kids. So he's a very data-driven person, started to do a little bit more research, worked with a company called an organization called the Search Institute that found that 20% of youth in this country don't have a positive adult role model in their life. And so that's the thing, how could we maybe do something positive and then scale it across the country? And a fortuitous meeting, he had a dinner with a board member of our parent company in California, and they asked if Uncle Tommy could come to the board meeting, and he said, sure. I don't know who Uncle Tommy is, but sure, have him more the merrier, it's fun.
Oh, great.
So, when Tommy Lasorda showed up to the dinner. A chairman didn't know who he still was, but they hit it off, and they got on very well. They obviously had a lot of commonality. He was very interested in his story, his career. Obviously, Tommy had an illustrious 60, 70-year career in baseball. And he mentioned one time that they had a game the following Saturday, 8:00 in the morning, and Tommy said, "Oh, I'll come to the game." He's like, "Yeah, sure. Yeah, Tommy Lasorda's going to come out to a youth baseball game in California." But lo and behold, 8:00 on the next Saturday, Tommy Lasorda shows up to this ballpark in the middle of California and coached in the dugout with a chairman. And he, at one point, a kid had gone up. He had said, Warren turned to Tommy and said, "This kid's not had a hit all year. He's tried, and he's really a good worker, and he's been close and fouled off some balls and stuff, but hadn't had a hit." So Tommy just walks on the field and stops the game. I mean, this is Southern California, so Tommy can do that. And he leant down, kneeled down next to the kid and talked to the kid for a minute or so, kind of really close, kind of into his ear. Nobody knows exactly what he was said, but we kind of surmised that it was something along the lines of, you've got to believe in yourself before other people are going to believe in you. That was a big thing of Tommy's, and that you've got to have determination, and you've got to be able to believe in that to be able to be successful. So anyway, Tommy goes back to the dugout, winks at our chairman, Warren, and a couple of pitches later, the kid gets his first hit in a game, and Tommy just looked at Warren kind of with kind of see, that's what it is. And from that became a real long friendship. Our chairman actually gave one of the eulogies after Tommy passed at Dodger Stadium, and they traveled the world as Tommy gave speeches around the world on this kind of, you got to believe, this attitude, this determination attitude, this building relationships, and the magic that Tommy had and that Tommy had with his players. I've heard of a story that at a dinner, a frail older Tommy, was being looked after by some of his players that hadn't played for him for 40 years. And these were celebrities and big stars in their own right. But the relationship that he built up with them when they played, and a chairman said, okay, what if Steel Sports could kind of take that magic that he had and we could apply that to coaches around the country, and they could create that with kids on the field, and then hopefully that number that the Search Institute researched does not goes down over time. And that's kind of what we do. We try and take in what Tommy did and that innate ability he had and put it on a piece of paper and see if we could train coaches. And that's what we've been trying to do for the last 13 years. And, we're getting a lot of good data that shows we're being relatively successful in that. There's certainly room for improvement, but we're starting to see that, from the results that we get from both our athletes and the parents. So, yeah, it's a cool story.
Yeah, that's a really cool story. And curious, because I know, you mentioned at the very beginning, core to what you do is collecting data around, how successful is the program and is what you're doing with the coaches, how is that impacting the kids? You just said you're having some success. Do you have any good success stories that you can share?
Yeah, so we measure across a bunch of different ranges. So we focus on our 4 core values to start with, which are teamwork, respect, integrity, and commitment. But we also focus on what we call our core competencies, which are determination, resilience, leadership skills. And we're measuring kids as they come into our program what a benchmark is from both feedback from both them as athletes, them as their parents and our coaches, and some other things that we do at these initial practices. And then we're also measuring that on the back end. So we're seeing a huge increase. And one of the big statistics that we had found last year in 2023, which was great for us, is that 100% of our parents of our athletes, and we have about 3,000 athletes across the country in our sports teams, are stating that their kids are demonstrating the core values of teamwork, respect, integrity, commitment off the field. So at school, at home, and in their communities. And that's a big pillar, because our mission isn't just to develop athletes on the field. A bigger, sports is our vehicle for that, and it's a great vehicle to do that. But we want to develop kids off the field. We want to make them better citizens as they grow up, better members of their community when they grow up as well. And we do like to say we're trying to change the world one kid at a time, and it's a long-term project, and it will probably outlast me and outlive me. But that's what we're trying to do, and I think we're starting to see some of that data that those practices we're putting into place of being successful, and we're seeing those kids demonstrate at least our core values as well as other areas, for them, and we've seen that improvement.
So that is so cool. When we talked the other day, it really occurred to me that what you're training the coaches on are what are really the soft skills of coaching, right? You're not teaching them the X's and O's of, how to play the sport of soccer or baseball, whatever it might be. It's more the teamwork and the discipline and your values and competencies that you were talking about. So I think that's so cool because, when you think about leadership, that's what leadership training is often teaching, are what some people would call soft skills. I like to call them essential skills: empathy, authenticity, teamwork, right? All of those same things. So curious how you have tied the two together, because I believe you're also doing work in the leadership space.
Yes, that's true, and we do. And I said our vehicle is youth sports. Our vehicle is coach to kid, but these are transferable skills. And like yourself, I don't like to call them soft skills. I think they're some of the hardest skills to actually teach it and utilize it and be successful with. We like to use the term core competencies, human-centered skills. So I think that's kind of what the piece, because the teaching the technical element, and even in a youth sport, it's difficult. You need experts to do it, but it is actually easier to teach a kid how to hit a baseball or hit a soccer ball than actually teach them about empathy and leadership skills and how to do that. But I think it's also critical, and I get into the leadership space that we talk about, to also recognize that it's important as well that they become intentional and they're genuine and authentic when you're teaching those skills. And that's what does make it hard, because if it's not in a genuine and authentic way, at least in our world, a child's going to see through that. But I think that's true as any adult and human as well. But we are part of a large organization called Steel Partners. There are 12 other businesses as part of Steel Partners that are our sister businesses, and we're doing a lot of work with them in terms of taking these ideas and this philosophy of Tommy, this you've got to believe, teaching leadership skills, because at the end of the day, it's about developing a positive developmental relationship with another person. Now, as I said, our vehicle is coach to kid, but it's the same for a supervisor to an employee, to a peer, to friend to friend, parent to child, spouse to spouse. It's really about developing those skills to be able to develop a positive relationship. So the active listening skills, as you said, empathy, sympathy, all of those things, leadership, communication, all of those things are critical when you're developing a relationship with another person. I said our vehicle is coach to kid, but those skill set and that the way you teach that to the way we teach it to those coaches is certainly transferable to teach to other people. And it's about recognizing that. And again, underpinning all of that is that critical element and of our coaching system, and being able to teach that at a level that people can understand to be able to transfer those skills to other people. And we do teach the technical skills in our teams of soccer, baseball, softball, or kind of 3 core sports. But yeah, that's not our primary focus. It's definitely those core competencies or soft skills, as you said. But the 2 words that we really instill in our coaches is that genuine and authentic, because that's critical when you're teaching these core competencies. People will see through you if it's a word vomit, or if it's just checking the boxes. You have to believe in it. You have to internalize that. You have to internalize those core values yourself in order to be able to teach them to somebody else.
I'm listening to you, and the thought that keeps running through my head is the power that one person has to make a difference in somebody else's life. I mean, Tommy did it with that kid when he's, at bat, and whatever he said, he made a difference. And we all know that one teacher can really make such a huge difference in a child's life, or one coach. I think that's the case for a leader as well. But to do that, it gets back to what you're saying, right? You have to have those skills, which are sometimes hard to learn. You have to really believe that they can work. So you have to believe in them. But I think you have to just believe also in the power that you have as an individual to make such a difference.
100%. Tommy obviously made a difference in many baseball professional lives, as well as other people that he met throughout the year, including our chairman, and had a profound effect on his life. Essentially, though, when you're talking about leadership, I think it's important to know that there isn't a single way to lead. Right. There are many different ways to lead, and we teach our kids sometimes, if you're an introvert, you can still be a leader. Even if it's a leader of one and it's you, but it's by doing those right things you can have an impact on somebody else. And I think the piece of it that you mentioned in terms of, we're talking about a coach to a kid, or Tommy to that young kid that got the hit. If we can do that for many people, you don't have to be in a supervisor role to be able to do that. You can do that peer to peer. You can do it just for yourself. And I think that's what's critical. And that's kind of the message we get across to our kids, which I think is transferable in any organization and any level. It's, adults, adolescent, or child, that there are many different ways you can make an impact. And even if it's on yourself and you're just leading yourself, that's perfectly fine. There's nothing wrong with that. Not everyone's the boisterous, loud, listen to me, follow me type of person. You might be an introvert, and you might be just leading yourself. But that, if you can lead yourself in a positive way, then that's what becomes critical. So,
and I think you're saying if you can just lead yourself, I don't think that's such a small statement that you're making. I think first and foremost, we all need to be leaders of ourselves, and I think we have to own that role. That I do have to take care of who I am and how I show up in this world. And if we could all do that, really, what a better place I think things could be. But I do think it does start with us as individuals, and realizing that we can make a difference for ourselves, which then can have just this, snowball effect, which is huge.
Absolutely. And it can be done in organization. We've worked with organizations in the manufacturing space, in the banking space, in event space. And, we're just really taking that core of what we do with our kids and just transferring it to different organizations. And it's been successful. We've had a lot of great feedback because it's different. We don't necessarily say that we're going out and teaching leadership. What we're doing is taking the elements of our coaching system and we're bringing that to people. So we're not focused. Leadership's a part of that, right? But leadership's not all about empathy. You can maybe not be a leader, but you can have empathy and sympathy. You can be resilient. You can be determined. Those kind of those core competencies, those soft skills. Leadership's a part of that. It's not necessarily the whole thing. So we found very successful that we haven't gone out and said we're going to teach you leadership. That's not what we're doing. We're teaching you elements of this positive developmental relationships. Sometimes that does increase leaders, and that does help leaders develop, and leaders can emerge in that in a variety of different ways. But that's not, I said, our focus isn't kind of just that leadership space. It's bringing all of this together, and that's what we do with our kids, and that's where we're seeing success, and we're seeing that transfer to other areas of industry. So.
Well, that's awesome because life is all about relationships. So I think if you take it from that approach of the relationships that you create with others, that can have that profound impact. All right. So I got to ask, some lessons learned so far. You've been doing this now. You've been with them since 2018, but the company's been around right since 2011. So what would you say are some significant lessons that you've learned?
I think the biggest lessons I've learned is I think really is twofold. One, you're only as good as the content that you can teach to other people, right? You have to have something there, and it has to be based in some sort of evidence, research, science. Anybody can just go out and say, hey, you should do this, you should do this. We meticulously take our content and build it with experts. And if we're not the expert in that field, we'll go find whoever that expert is or one of those experts and help say, this is what we want to achieve. How can we help us develop that content? So for me, you're only as good as the content you have. And then secondly, as you really kind of mentioned it, is people and relationships. We class ourselves, we're in a relationship business. Essentially, what's our sell? We're selling the ability to teach people to build those relationships. So it's about people, and you're only as good as the people that you have, and if you can help them along the way. So I'm in awe of the work that our coaches do on the ground every day and what they do with kids, and what they actually go about in terms of learning, taking on our content, learning, having that growth mindset to be able to get better and better and better and always look for improvement, and then transferring that skill set to kids. To me, content is key, and then the actual people that you have delivering that, they have to internalize it. And we've also had coaches as part of our organization that haven't bought into what we've done, and it's just not worked. And that's fine. There's no right or wrong. This is how we do it, and this is but you've got to look at what's a fit for you. So if this isn't a fit for you, then please, go ahead and do it somewhere else. That's fine. So we're really kind of big on making sure that our coaches are internalizing what we want to do, because that's how they then have the biggest impact. So content and people are two of the biggest things, I think. And I think we are showing that we're being successful in both elements of them. We can certainly get better at everything we do, but those are the two big things I think, that lessons I've learned, and it's so critical, not just for the business we're in, but I think can be transferred across all businesses. What's your training like at your workplace? What's the relationship you have with your peers or your supervisor or the people that report to you? And I think you can improve all of those to make it more successful across the board. So
I'm also thinking of culture, right? Because you're talking about the coaches that don't buy into what your program and the way that you do things, then they're not fitting with your culture. And finding people that do fit in with your culture, support your culture, and will help grow your culture is a key part in all industries. Yeah.
It's a huge part, because if an organization doesn't have, we refer to ours as our cultural characteristics. Growth mindset is one of them. Having family and family environment is one of them. Opportunity is one of them. So you can have them for your organization, but if your organization, if you're listening in your organization, you don't know what those core values are, you don't know what those cultural characteristics are for your organization, I would certainly be asking questions of the leadership to explain them, and because how do you know if those people are going to internalize what you want to do if you don't have it somewhere? So it's really important to be able to refer to those, to the mission, to your values, to your cultural characteristics as an organization, and to make sure that everybody you have in your organization buys into that. And if they don't, that's fine. Everything isn't for everybody, right? So you have to look at it and say, we want certain type of people that buy into this because that's what's important to us and the soul of our organization. So.
Yeah, I love that, the soul of your organization. That's cool. So, all right, this has been great. Really so very interesting. And what a cool story about how you came to be and the stuff that you're doing. So my last question for you is, what's next for Steel Sports?
So what's really our biggest thing that we're currently working on is our coaching system has been built over 12, 13 years of lots of different inputs. So we have it in a couple of different places. It's mainly been the use of our internal coaches, what we call our internal customers, to train them to deliver on so we can prove that it works, right? The proof's in the pudding. Our teams and our kids that we work with is the proof that the system works. So what we're in the process of doing is collaborating all of that together and putting it into its new own platform, its own app. It's going to be called the Lasorda Way, that we can then also have external groups utilize and take some of those elements for it. So that's going to be the biggest project for us in the next few months. But ultimately, what's next for Steel Sports is that we want to positively impact as many kids as we possibly can across the world. We do some things with the Italian Baseball Federation. So we're doing some things with kids in Italy. We've worked with kids in Mexico. We've worked with a group in Canada. So we really want to expand and take, we know that our coaching system and that philosophy and that culture that we have, is powerful and successful. So we want to kind of bring that to as many kids as we possibly can around the world. And as you said, go back to the point of change the world one kid at a time. That's what we want to do.
So if somebody wanted to find out how they could get involved with Steel Sports or bring the program to their area or for their local coaches, is there a way, or what message do you have for them?
Go to steelsports.com. And from there, you can contact anybody in our organization, depending on what field you might be interested in, whether it's coach education, whether it's, bringing our stuff to your organization. We do have a model for that. It's called our Powered by Steel Sports model. Steelsports.com is the best place to get to know us, see what we're about. You can read more about the story of Tommy and a few others in more detail. But I would definitely encourage people to check that out.
All right, great. Well, Martin, thank you so much for your time. This has been great. I really appreciate you agreeing to speak with us.
Yeah,
so thank you.
Yeah, it was great. Thank you. Thanks for having me. And look forward to talking to you soon.